Well, praise the Lord, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of This Is Us. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We are so honored that you will join us again on this Wednesday. And I got a treat for you today. God is so, so good. The people that he brings to the Resurrection Center is absolutely, absolutely incredible. Now, if you remember some time ago, maybe 4, 5, 6 weeks ago, we interviewed somebody named Rico Batica. And if you've been attending the Resurrection Center or if you've been watching online, you hear Rico's name sometimes and you've heard him scream in church because he's very vocal. Well, today we're going to get the better half of Rico because Rico's wife, Carolyn Grenier, is going to be with us today. And we are so, so honored to have her. Now, before I allow you to hear from her, I need you to do me a huge favor. Ladies and gentlemen, every single week we come here, we ask you to subscribe, leave comments, send us your email, connect with us however you can. But I have a special favor. Just a little while ago, we released our RCWA album. That's right, live album recorded here at the Resurrection Center, written by our staff and members of our worship team. And if you have not bought the album yet, go on Apple Music or Spotify, or if you want an actual CD. Somebody, my wife was talking to one of the young people and said, "Hey, are you going to buy a CD?" And she got this blank look like, CD? What am I going to do with a CD? And they're right. Many people don't have CDs, but you can download Apple Music, Spotify, or however you want to purchase your music. I'm asking you, don't just listen to it, but download it, pay for it. It will help us. And then if you could do us another favor and leave comments, positive comments on Apple Music, it would help us. By the way, it's the first time ever that we've done this recording, and we hit #1 on Apple Music in inspirational music. There was a while that overall for all music, we're in close to the top 50 overall. I mean, it is absolutely incredible, and we give God thanks for what he's doing. So go ahead and support us by purchasing this album. We would really, really appreciate it. The Resurrection Center. It's called RC Worship. We'll put it on the screen right beneath just so that you know how to get the CD. So if you're ready, I'm ready. And I want to introduce for the very first time, This Is Us. And this person is Carolyn Grenier. Carolyn, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
And you know, it is such an honor and a privilege for you to take the time out of your busy schedule to be with us today. And as I mentioned before, one of the purposes of doing these interviews or this podcast, whatever you want to call it, we want people to know who are the members of the Resurrection Center. Because a lot of times, you know, people see the pastors and leaders and worship leaders on the stage, but I'm not convinced that people come to church and be part of a ministry just because they connect with the person on the stage. I believe in order for people to stay, they need to connect with people in the pew.
Yes.
So, you know, you are one of those people who've been coming to the Resurrection Center. How many years now?
Since June 2011. So
Do you have the date? Wow. June what?
2011. So
2011. June 2011. That's incredible. So thank you, by the way, for trusting us, because, you know, in any culture, it's not easy to trust people. And if I understand correctly, like let's start off by telling the audience a little bit about you and who you are, where you grew up, your experience in Quebec. We'll start with that.
Okay. Well, I was born in a small town called Stornoway. Stornoway.
Okay. How far is that from Montreal?
3 hours.
3 hours.
It's 20 minutes from Lac-Mégantic.
Okay. This is where the train derailed, right?
Yes. And it's a small town. that my family on my mom's side has been for about 150 years.
Wow.
And same with my dad's side. So that's our area.
That's your area. So you grew up, born and raised right here in Quebec?
Yes.
Okay.
So I grew up there. Now I realize it was, there's nothing perfect, but let's say perfect childhood. Mm-hmm. Now that I understand life better. So my first years were wonderful. I'm the youngest of a family of 4.
Okay. 2 sisters?
Yes, 2 sisters and 1 brother.
Oh, 1 brother.
But there's a gap of 10 years. So they're
like my wife.
Okay.
Between my wife's sister and her is 10 years.
Okay, yes. So my older sister, there's 13 years. They're close together. They're all 3, and then I came 10 years after.
Wow.
So already growing up, I remember I always I was more interested with what they were doing. I never really had friends my own age. I did, like a bit.
Sure, I understand.
But from an early age, I was already part of a more adult life.
Ah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so
So you probably had no choice but to grow up and experience a lot of adult things too fast.
Yes, but it was fun, like what my sister was, who's probably my best friend, I would say, Julie. Even though she was 10 years older, she would play Barbies with me. We would have so much fun. And then she was going to Cégep. So on my weekends, my older sister, I was going to stay at her apartment in Sherbrooke.
Wow.
So I was, doing things, and then I would go back to my little elementary school.
Right.
So, my sister got married. My sister has been with her husband since I'm 4.
4.
4.
Okay.
Yes, and they're still together. So I was part of like a life like that, which is a bit different, I guess, than if I had siblings my own age.
Sure.
So probably when they all left, high school was very difficult when I got to that point.
Now, I'm sure, wait a sec, Karen, because you just said a statement that a lot of people, especially our youth today, can relate to. High school was very difficult.
Yes.
Why was it so difficult?
Because for various reasons, I really love school. Okay.
Yeah, you love studying, I
love learning. Yes.
And you love reading, right?
Yes, and I was different because you know how your body changes, and it's a difficult time already, just like in itself. And I remember not fitting at all because it's over there, like there's one school that everyone goes to, which is fun.
It's a small community, right?
Yes. So it's all the villages, and then the school is in Lac-Mégantic.
Yeah.
So in my elementary school, we were like 40 kids, and then after you go on to high school. Well, high school for us is the whole. I don't know how you. And then there was 1,000 or something students, so different environment. And because it was in that place, it's very monocultural in a sense where, it's that kind of music that people listen to, and it's that kind of...
Even the food we eat is all the same, right?
Yes. And now I realize I love it. But at that time, I don't know, I felt like I was too eager to go on to something else. When I was 13, I went on a school trip to New York.
Wow.
Because before that...
At 13?
Yes.
Okay.
Before that, like, with my family, we always had fun. Like, every weekend we would go, drive to Quebec, Sherbrooke, we would go all around.
So it sounds like you came from a very tight family.
Yes.
Very family oriented.
Yes. And not only tight, but we really have fun. Like,
wow,
we have
that's
fun
amazing.
Together.
That's amazing because we don't hear and see that in our culture today. We're not very close as families because of this, a lot of cases, we seem to be very apart.
Yeah.
But it sounds like, and you're saying this with such joy.
Yes.
So you love this.
It's one of the best blessings in my life, the family I grew up in.
That's amazing.
And I grew up, we didn't have a VCR.
No VCR?
No VCR. We just had 2 channels.
I was going to say cable? No cable.
No,
2 channels?
Yes, Radio-Canada and TVA.
Yeah.
And we just had 1 phone with the cord
Yeah.
in the kitchen.
Okay.
So there's.
But you're not, and I'm not asking you to tell your age. You're not very old.
No, I'm 37.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
So,
but I'm the youngest in my home, right?
Yeah.
So so let's say, just for example, like there at that point, like my brother and my sisters would be on studying, you know, their own apartments, and then just me, my mom, my dad, we would back out the driveway, and then they would say, okay, left or right, and then
that's incredible.
Let's go left. And
okay, so there wasn't a plan.
Oh,
it was
no.
just we're doing.
We're
something.
like famous loungers. We enjoy life. That's how I grew up. Yes. So that's how I grew up. But then when I was in school, it wasn't the same. Like I didn't feel the same connection. I had friends. And okay, so then this trip to New York, and then what happened at that time? And then one of my friends, she had internet, and then the chat.
Yeah.
I discovered the chatting stuff. I think when I was 12. And then I went to New York at 13, and that was like too much taking in at one point. And I'm just like, all of this is going on.
And you're in this small town?
Yes. And now I understand what I had, and I still have, right? Because when I go back there, but it felt so small and so not exciting compared to what was happening in New York. And then from that point on, and then I remember it was on a school trip again to Quebec City, and at Le Chateau Frontenac, it was May 1999, I remember. It was the first, my first Vogue, US Vogue magazine that I bought.
Yes.
And I studied that. And from that point on, like fashion was a huge thing. And not just fashion, but that world. Okay. I understood that a world existed outside of my own circle that it was like the Barbies I was playing with, but real life Barbies, kind of.
Amazing.
So then I was buying Vogue every month, and I kept them up until not that long ago. Like I had huge piles of Vogue that I would read every month. So anyway, so again, like that, where I'm from, no one is really interested in that anyways, that I knew. So, and with the chatting with people from the city, so it created like a divide, and people could tell that I was different.
So did they think, the perception was that, oh, she's too good for us, or?
No, just weird.
Just weird.
Yes.
So and you were weird?
Well, just weird because I would dress differently.
And you were bullied?
Yes, I would dress differently. So I remember in high school, like I would, during the breaks, I would go to the library because that was a peaceful place. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so that's how I made it through, but that not for too long because I left my parents' house when I was 13.
13?
To come to Montreal.
Hey, 13!
Yeah. And it's hard to understand. Even me, when I try to wrap my mind around it now, I just had something that I couldn't wait to go on to live that life. Like I couldn't make it through secondary 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then that was never ending. I couldn't wait.
Okay, so 13, you weren't finished high school at 13.
No.
So what did you do?
Well, I came to Montreal, and then I was very resourceful.
Which you are.
Yes. And it's amazing. I remember back then, you could buy 2 chaussons pommes, apple something at McDonald's, 2 for 99 cents.
Apple turnovers.
Something, yes. So I remember that those, like with a few dollars, like I could eat for,
wow.
And I was just thinking, taking it all in. Uh-huh. And now I understand. That's why, like, as I was doing this, I couldn't really understand. And the point was, I was not doing that out of, nothing was bad in my home. For me, I was just curious. I couldn't take the...
So it wasn't because you hated your parents or they were abusive
everything was wonderful.
Or anything, right?
Like, everything was wonderful. Not perfect, right? But nothing that would...
I don't know any home that's perfect.
Yeah. No.
But they didn't kick you out or anything. It's not a story like this. This is you pursuing something without even really knowing what it is you're pursuing?
Yes.
Okay.
And all I knew was that it made me feel kind of alive.
Were you homeless? Where
not
did you
really.
live?
Well, sometimes I was not really homeless because I kind of created like a network.
Right.
And I think not long after I did that, my sister, who was 23, she had her first job in Montreal. So she had her apartment and then bought her own condo.
Okay.
So that was
so
also,
you could live with her now.
Yes. So my whole life, I see it now, God always had me.
That's amazing.
So when I was in Montreal, my sister was always there.
Okay.
So I was just doing my own thing, but my parents have suffered. Probably in silence because they really love me. And even I remember while I was in Montreal, like I would keep talking to them. They would come and see me.
That must have been a real struggle for a
them,
parent.
yes.
Because they would think, I failed. I can't even control my 13-year-old daughter.
Yes, probably. It was probably difficult, especially that over there, like everyone probably knew that I had left. What was I doing? You understand? So I think...
Which probably questioned the parents.
Yes.
What's wrong with you?
Yes.
How can you allow your daughter to do this?
Yes.
Which I would say that.
Yes. And so it was probably very difficult on them, which is...
Especially in the small town, right?
Yes. But now, and if we go like back and forth, so that's why now it's really important for me. And like now it's been, I'm 37, so it's a while behind,
Sure.
but like I make not a conscious effort, but it's conscious for me to honor my mom and my dad.
Yes.
So that this episode of my life can
I understand.
be surpassed, outweighed by good things.
From what I know and see of you and Rico, you do a great job at trying to honor your mom and dad.
Yes.
Because at some points, it's almost like your dad is your best friend. Because you travel
He's
with
wonderful.
him, right?
Yes.
Yes. And your dad is an incredible man.
Yeah, I tell everyone that after Jesus, it's my dad.
Wow.
On my ranking.
Wow.
Yeah. So even in that, like I never took drugs.
Okay.
My entire life.
So you never got addicted to drugs?
No.
Man.
I didn't even ever taste it.
So you've never done drugs?
No. But for me, that had...
Not even marijuana?
No.
Wow.
And it was surrounding me.
Oh my gosh, I would think so.
And there was no lure there was nothing pulling me into it.
Okay.
And, probably my drug of choice was attention. As it's for many girls and women. And it's very insidious how it controls us. So that was it.
But this is so important, Caroline, for young ladies that's watching this, to hear somebody like you say this. What would you say to the 13 to 15 or even 18-year-old girl right now, young lady, that's really struggling with her identity, that maybe things are not even healthy at home and they just want to get away? What would you say to them?
Back then, I would not listen to people that would try to put sense into me.
I like that. That's so funny.
And they never screamed at me, but my parents would try to reason with me. And it's, what's funny now, I understand, we always had humor. So even back then, they would laugh. For some reason, they would laugh at what I was doing. Not in a downgrading way. Sure. But in haha, do you see what's happening here? Right. So what I would say, you know what? I don't know. You don't know. I would say, now I know when I speak with people, I don't know, God was doing this for me the whole time.
You made a statement, and you're making the statement again now, that God had you, or God got you at, but did you have Were you acknowledging God? Or did you?
Back then?
Yeah, like.
Okay, well, yeah, I did skip that. I would go every Sunday with my parents to Sunday Mass.
Okay. So you grew up Catholic?
Yes. And it's the church where we have one church where everything happened. Like everyone got married, everyone got baptized. Yes. And we would go there. But also the left-right thing, when we would go to church in other towns.
Wow.
Around. So, and then after go to dinner at a different place. So this would always, it was fun for us. It was either on Saturday or on Sunday. So, and I remember in my elementary school, they would catechize, they teach you God in school. So I remember Zacchaeus in a tree, and all of that. So I knew God, and for some reason, yes, even though like I didn't understand the way I understand now, I never was. For me, there was always something, and yes, I would pray, and I remember having my own New Testament.
Really?
So, but that got on the back seat for a while. And also when I was 4, I had meningitis.
Wow.
I almost died. They brought me to the hospital, and I don't remember that part, but the doctor said that we did everything that we could do. Like, now it's up to,
Up to God?
Yeah, I don't think he said that, but now he said, like, pray for a miracle or something to my parents. And I'm here, so the miracle happened.
Right.
So coming back to when I was in Montreal, my sister was there. And it's almost like I lived, like, on fast forward many things, but never with the desire of hurting myself. For me, I was an explorer of life. And I would see, like, hurt people a lot more than me. And I was in places where things could have really gone wrong. Like, a lot of times. Right. Things that could have really gone wrong. But somehow I made it. And
How in the world did you come to Montreal living, on your own, 13, 14, 15? How did you not get addicted to drugs and alcohol?
I don't know, because none of my brothers and sisters, that was never something.
Okay.
I don't know if it's the way my mom would talk about it, that, I don't know, there's no appeal to me.
That's amazing.
It just looks disgusting. Like everything. Oh, and my mom, she always said, like, when you go out, and she would say that often, like, she said, I don't understand women put so much effort, like, getting ready for the night. And she said, I don't understand, by the end of the night, they're on the floor, right? With their makeup, like, all...
Right.
And she said that, like, and it's like, it's ingrained
in your brain. Yes. This is not the way a lady should be.
No, you kind of go back home the same way you went.
Interesting. Wow.
And my mom was not even someone who drank alcohol, and my dad not much either. So that was part of it.
Well, thank God that the enemy didn't get you in that area.
Yes.
No,
me, it was more vanity.
Right.
And attention that got me. So a lot of things, like, happened then. Like, I was really interested in the nightlife. Like, it was it was fun, it seemed, right? For a little while.
But I think, Caroline, and you can certainly give your opinion, a lot of times, especially as believers and as we mature a little bit, we look back and say, oh, that's not fun. In the moment, you had fun.
I had fun.
Of course you did.
Yes.
And the Bible actually says that sin has pleasure for a season. Yes. So I don't think we do a justice to people who...
In acknowledging...
Yeah, exactly.
The lure of, like...
Of course.
Yes.
So continue.
But I also remember in that time, I was very promiscuous. And so it's funny because I met Rico at 17.
That's incredible.
So all of this, like...
So, and I'm sure he wasn't your first boyfriend.
No.
And you're only 17.
Yes. So
that amazes me.
In a span of a few years, I really lived, like, a lot of things. And so by the time I met Rico, which is funny, by the time I met Rico, I was disenchanted, to say the least, by men. So Rico really did a great job at loving me.
Wow, that's powerful. Hey, Rico, did you hear that?
Yes. And I remember,
I'm sure he hasn't always loved you properly since he met you, though.
But he never stopped loving me. But so that after I met Rico, like then a different chapter of my life started, because I would live on my own apartment with a roommate and.
So were you like partying every night?
Not every night. Sometimes I had to make money. Okay. But I guess I can say that it doesn't really. I would strip dance.
Okay.
From 15 to 17.
15 to 17.
Yes, I always look older.
So they never asked you for ID, obviously.
Yes, I had my sister's ID.
Don't worry, they're not going to come for you.
That's fine. And then I got arrested one time, and then they figured that I was underage, and my sister had to come and get me.
But they didn't send you back home, or?
No. Because even back then, because I was not using drugs, I guess I could talk, right?
Sure.
And I made sense, I guess, somehow. Yeah. And, and I had my apartment, but that was a way for me to make money on my own very quickly. So it was a good thing. Like when you're 15 and you make that kind of money, and then you just go downtown the day after and you spend it all on clothes and, restaurants and going out. And I had my own apartment that my dad signed for.
That's amazing.
And my friend, she was 5 years older, so she has the age to do all that, unlike me. That's
incredible how God kept you. Like you could end up dead.
Yes.
Because in that whole environment, the abuse must be crazy. It's dangerous.
Yes, but I really did not see that much horror story.
Okay.
I could see like people were messed up. But somehow I had a parallel.
When you hear stories about sexual trafficking and things like that today, how does that make you? Do you ever reflect and say, man, that could have been my story?
Yes. I was going to say sometimes it mostly happens when people use drugs, but sometimes they force you, like you don't even realize, then they hook you up and you don't know.
So because you become dependent on them then, right? That's why they get
or they just take you and bring you to a different city. And yes. And I'm telling you, really God was there.
Wow.
That whole time.
That's
I was
amazing.
on my life adventure. So, yes. So, but you see how then we always have to have faith, I guess. Because my mom then after we talked and she said that it was tearing her apart, obviously.
Wow.
But she said that she had a feeling, a sense that as long as I would not use drugs, I would keep my head clear.
Yeah.
And then that I had a chance. And then every time, like when I would talk to her, she said, do you want your dad to go pick you up? And they were always there. They would come and see me. So, yes. So, and my mom said she had faith in the fact that they poured so much love into me that eventually it would come back.
Amazing.
So, and it did. When I was 16, again, like, I think now discernment is a gift, right?
Yes.
I might have it.
You might have. That's too funny. I might have it.
Because I started seeing older women working in that industry, and I did not envy their life. So then I went back to school, and then I was doing both. And then it started being weird because as soon as I went back to school, like I had the good grades, and everything was good. And then at night I would go on so, and then at one point I just felt, and you see this is how God works with me and the Holy Spirit, because I remember I was in a bar and I was like getting ready, like the way, in the, I don't know how you say that in English, dans la loge. And I just felt I can't do this anymore.
Just like that.
Just like that.
My goodness.
And then I had my apartment, which oftentimes my dad would pay for. Because even with all this money I was making, I was just spending it.
Yeah, of course.
He was sending money every month to pay for my apartment.
That's amazing.
And then I called him, and he knew what I was doing. I said, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm going back to school, and I'm going to find a job, but I won't make the same amount of money.
So you had to go back to finish high school,
yes,
right?
And I said, will you help me? And he said, yes.
Yeah.
So then I moved with my sister in her condo. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot more, but then, we can't stay here all day. Then I moved with my sister, and my sister was also, she had been in a relationship for almost 9 years, and that ended. Okay. So she was also she was like 20-something, 26, right? Mm-hmm. So we would go out together. So that was for the summer of 2003 was quite a summer. It was fun. And then I met Rico.
At 17?
Yes.
Okay.
And then my life changed, but not inside, like enough. I wanted what the life that women in Vogue had, if that makes sense.
It makes sense, but is that real? Or because, you're looking at a magazine, is it a real life? Or is this
yes, but it's
like social media. Like when I look at social media, I could say, wow, I want that. But what is it that I'm asking for exactly?
Yes. Well, it's hard to explain.
Well, you could do a good job.
Well, because it seems so stupid now, you understand? But when I would look at this, and it's women, it's socialites. Okay, so it's not influencers. Mm-hmm. The socialites is like the Harris of the great fortunes and European aristocracy. Okay. And then they mingle together.
Okay, I understand.
So
you wanted this lifestyle.
Yes, because...
So you wanted the lifestyle of rich and famous?
Not famous.
Not famous.
I don't care
just rich.
I don't care for famous, but for me, when... have you seen the movie The Devil Wears Prada?
Yes.
Okay. So you see the editor-in-chief?
Yes.
So it's not really about being famous. It's just being influent in that field.
Okay.
You understand?
Yes.
And everything that you do is curated, and everything is tasteful and proper and nice, and you spend.
But it reeks of pride. You know that, though, right?
Yes. Yes.
And arrogance.
But that world is full of that.
Yes,
right?
Of course.
It's finding significance through
exactly.
what you wear,
exactly,
who you know.
So if I hear you correctly, this becoming your addiction.
Yes.
You're pursuing this.
Yes, and at the same time, to me, because of where I'm from, to be able to make it in that world, that was my challenge. Anyway, so that's a different world that we don't really see it because it's very close, like knitted. That the magazine Town and Country. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's the magazine for the 1%, right. The 1%, but yes, power and right. So that's what was interesting to me. And then even with Rico, I would try to make my life something like that to the extent that I could, which was kind of like denying who I really was, right? I was trying to be something else.
And aren't we all guilty of doing that at certain places in our lives? Even today, I mean, if you look at, because most of our audience is probably church sometimes creates that atmosphere. You got to try to pretend you're something that you're not in order to fit.
Yes. Because to me, that was a higher calling than what my life was. This was like an achievement that was worth all of this energy I was trying to put into it. And that drove me nuts. But also, and it's funny because again, God in his great wisdom, Enrico, who is an amazing husband at letting me be me, I did enough of the things of that life, again, like before, that I was able to taste it. what it feels like
understand.
to be in Monte Carlo and Paris, you understand, and London,
Sure.
and all those fancy places that I was there. I did it with my sister, sometimes my dad. So I was never really in danger. Like I was not with strangers.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to see really, and then, oh yes, what I wanted to say is I've realized recently that one of my life skill, I guess maybe it's instinct, I can adapt very easily to wherever I am. Like I figure out quickly the way to make it work. And it's hard for me, I guess, with someone who is like that to really figure out who you are.
Mm.
Because everywhere I go, I kind of, like a chameleon, I kind of like find the quickest way that I can, like I understood the codes, the dynamics, right? And I make it work. And then at one point I realized it's not me. And then I'm all screwed up. Okay. So then I took that to a really different level in 2009. At that point, I've been with Rico for 6 years. We got married. And then I remember because I was believing in all the wrong things, when I got married, I thought that by some magical something, life would change. But then Rico was still the same. I was still the same because I didn't understand the institution of marriage properly.
I understand.
And then that really sent me into a
whirlwind.
Whirlwind, yes. And that lasted until I came to Jesus for about 3 years.
That's amazing.
And it's amazing how Rico was able to walk me through it.
So, who got born again first? You or Rico?
Rico.
Rico did.
Yes.
How long was Rico born again before you made a decision to follow Christ?
Well, I think he has been since the entire time I was with him.
Okay.
And also so that maybe he said it the last time, but I met him a month after he became sober. So he was going through with getting sober, and I was involved in my conquering or fashion world. Mm-hmm. So that had to coexist at the same time, mm-hmm. which God really made it work. Because when I try to understand, it's difficult to see because there were a lot of dynamics at work that, right?
It's amazing. Did anybody ever ask you, why did you stay with Rico with all the struggles? I mean, he's trying to get clean, trying to stay sober. And I know some of the inside story, maybe our audience wouldn't know. Well, I know they would know. It took a lot for you, or at least from my perspective, it would take a lot for a person to stay with such a person that requires so much help. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us, why did you stay, or have you ever thought about that?
Yes. After you get all of the initial superficial reasons out of the way, because that usually you don't build a house on a rock based on those reasons. But I really figured that for some reason, even before I understood, Rico has a really special heart. He's very generous, but not just and I needed that. Like I really enjoy being alone, and he gives me the room I need to do that. And it's almost like he loves me the same way that my family loves me.
Wow, that's a powerful statement.
He loves, and I'm telling you, like, it's been 20 years that we're together, and I've been like different women. I don't know how many times he had a different version of me. Right. But he stayed. And you know how sometimes couples, they separate because they each go their separate way? Yeah. He was always there for me, and every time like it was difficult for him, I knew there was more to him than that.
So he had a lot of grace to give you the room to get to a place where Christ could actually get a hold of you.
Yes.
So he, through all the different phases in your life, he didn't let you go, and you didn't let him go.
Exactly. He didn't let me go, but at the same time, he gave me enough room to figure it out on my own.
Okay.
instead of like shoving it down my throat.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yes. And I guess to be able to do that, you need love and faith.
Mhm.
Because sometimes for a while it doesn't seem like it makes much sense.
Yeah, true.
To really accompany someone. And especially now, like I'm really not the same woman that he met when I was 17. And sometimes it's funny, he says, well, you're different, you're not the same. I'm like, obviously.
Thank God.
Thank God, yes. And I was 17 when we met, like I can't behave.
Yeah, of course.
Yes. So it's just a matter of like, I guess, falling in love with the new me and me with the new him as we go along.
Absolutely. Yeah, so talk about your experience of coming to know Christ.
Okay.
So Rico's accepted the Lord, you've met him, now you're married, but you've still not made a commitment yet to be a follower of Christ, right?
No.
So bring us to the place where you made this decision.
Yeah, okay. I'm trying to put that. So I was working with Rico since 2003, which is also
in what industry? Just so the people
the
can
clinics,
know.
dental
Clinics.
Yes.
Okay.
Which is also a blessing now, I realize, because of the work situation that we had, we were able to go through all of this life and sometimes take the time that we needed. Instead of if we had to work for other people.
I understand. So you were self-employed.
Kind of.
If you needed to take time off,
yes.
You could take time off without, any problem.
Because it's a family business.
Yeah.
Then Rico had the room to, whenever life was too much and he needed time to breathe and refocus, it was possible.
Yeah.
And the same for me, like, anyways.
Isn't it amazing how God knows what we need and he puts us in a position to meet the needs?
Yes, even before we know it.
Even before we know it.
I know.
Absolutely incredible.
It's amazing. And in 2009, so after we're married and we're together for 6 years, now it starts to dawn on me that that's the rest of my life.
Wow.
And I can't take it because it's really not what I want. And just to tell you to the extent where, because I remember when I was younger, I would see how, when I was younger, if I would see me now, I would think I'm a loser. Because, I wrote a note to myself in a book that I knew I would keep, that if in your 30s, you live in the suburbs and you work like it's like you failed us kind of, and
wow,
you know that you were able to be more, but you kind of like abandoned. And this was my mindset. To me, like if I was not becoming what I wanted, it was like failure.
That's amazing.
So I started to struggle with the fact that, I was living in the suburbs and working in Terrebonne at that time.
And lots of hours.
Yes,
lots of hours. Because you guys worked a lot.
Yes. And I couldn't take it. And I thought, I think I was 25 or somewhere around that. Yeah, in my early 20s. And I thought, if I'm going to do something now, like these are the best years of my life. If I'm going to bank on life, it has to happen now. But then I wanted to go, and so often, I thought I was going to leave Rico, and I would take it, before he would come back home from work, I would just take a plane and leave, so then I wouldn't have to, see his face. And then he would know that I was like that. And also...
Really?
I wasn't sure if I was going to say it, but I think it's incremental to the story. In 2009, I had an affair with someone from my past who now lived in London,
right?
Which is where I met. And it was just that one time that I met with him. And he, at that time, represented kind of the life that I wanted.
You wanted.
Yes. And I saw at that moment Rico was someone our life, not Rico, but just our life very boring with what we were doing. And then that struggle started. And then as soon as I came back, Rico was really in touch with God. So I think the day after he asked me, because God told him, he said, did you
Really?
cheat
Just like that?
Yeah, we were at a restaurant and he said, did you cheat on me? And I said, yes.
So it wasn't something that he would ask you all the time throughout your marriage. It was only this time.
Only that time. Because he always trusted me. And it was not the first time I was traveling on my own. Like I did that a lot of times going to see my sister in Paris.
And God told him, hey, she cheated on you.
Yes. And I said yes.
He confronts you.
Yes.
And you just said yes, like no big deal? Or was it, yes, but I'm sorry?
I don't know. At that point, and that's why I understand now when people are really like out of their shoes. I was numb. Wow. It's so weird. I didn't have any feelings. So I was numb. I was not grasping like the depth or what I had done. I was really disconnected. It's really weird. And that's why sometimes I can understand people when they do things that are very mean to others. Yeah, with no emotion. But don't really grasp. Yes. Yeah, with no emotions. And then from that point on, like again, like we... And then for 3 years, like I never saw him, the guy again, but sometimes like an emotional affair that I would talk to him on the phone again, and then Rico would confront me, and then I would stop, and then I wanted to stay, and then I would change, but then I was always going back there, and there, it's not just, I think that guy just represents the lifestyle life that you thought you wanted. Like London, Paris, right? All of this. New York. Yes. But then what kept me again is whenever I thought to leave, God would show me, because you see, I got, it's his wisdom, right? But I know that something is always fun in the first week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 3 months. Right. And then the honeymoon is over. Whatever Isn't it is. That's facts. Yes. So then God would take me, like I remember I would sit, and then God would show me, okay, 1 week after, and then, because, you have to make money, and then I would see how then life would just become mundane, the same over there, and like the hardship I would face. And at the same time, I could see, God would show me how it would destroy Rico. Probably he would go back to using, and then I could not live with that guilt. That's amazing. So then I would stay. And then throughout those 3 years, there's his sponsor in AA that helped us. Then that's at that point that we started coming here. And then you guys had the couples night, which was Pastor Betty and Pastor Kaz at the time. They really helped us. But then I kept dreaming of that life and talking to that guy sometimes. So what would you say, what counsel would you give? Yes. To maybe somebody that's watching right now, yes, that maybe is not exactly the same, but they're struggling with life. They maybe I don't want this person anymore. What would you say to that person that's maybe about to walk away from something that God brought into their life to bless them? What would you say to them? I would say that, well, it's probably a lie, to really think it through, but without the pink glasses, whatever they're like after. And to think of the damages they would cause to others. Right. But very soberly, like sit and imagine, like to fully live how it will affect other people. I'm surprised that somebody's so focused on pleasing herself and wanting what she wanted would come to the realization. I'm trying to figure out what made Carolyn mature enough to just say, wait, if I do this, I'm not just doing this to hurt myself. I'm going to hurt this other person who obviously you must have at least thought you loved because you're together. So what made you come to the realization and to have the maturity to say, I will deny what I want, not just because, but because I know it's going to affect his life. Like that's
a level of maturity that unfortunately a lot of people don't reach because we make these decisions. I don't care what they think. And, you know, I'm blessed. Yes, absolutely.
Horrible.
Yeah.
It has, and also because then Rico, and then also like I would do that to my family again, right? To be able to just taste my mom and my dad, and like when I was 15, that's one thing, you understand? But now I'm older.
You're a woman now, an adult.
Yes. So and what was very interesting is that during those 3 years, Rico would like constantly talk me through it. Like he would sit me down also and like, okay, so you're gonna do this, and then what? Very soberly, right? Instead of just like being like, I don't know, cries and like, oh. And you know, reasoning with people when you're like not afraid to say the real things is really powerful. Also, I find.
Wow, that's so cool.
And his brother would do the same thing. And I remember that they were really not condemning at all what I did, and I was like, I would say like mean things to him, like, you know, like this life is boring, I don't want it, and they would really reason with me, but not reason with me and like judge me and put me down. Right. It was really
to try to get you to see that what you were pursuing is not going to give you the satisfaction that you're expecting.
Exactly. So then ultimately, I kept kind of like going back to that because it was really a battlefield of the mind. I remember for that 3 years, and eventually, like I felt Rico oftentimes wanted to give up, and then he didn't. But then at one point, he told me, "Okay, like." Go live the life you want. Go after whatever you're after.
Sure.
I don't want to be the one that's going to keep you from living your dream life.
So he was setting you free.
Yes. Because he said, I can't take it anymore. Like, just go. And then, for some reason, I felt that time, he was serious. And that Sunday, I came alone to church. He stayed home. And after that, I went back, and then because of the what's happening that day, I was trying to get a hold of Pastor Kaz and Pastor Betty because I felt like the urgency. Yes. And at first I wasn't able to. And I had someone else's car, and I was supposed to bring it back downtown, but then I needed someone to drive me back. So that doesn't matter, but it's just that nothing was working out. And I felt like this was the end of something. So I remember he was in the living room, I was in a different room in the house, and I just got, you know, like he does, like fell flat on the floor. Yes. And I told God, like, I surrender. I can't do this anymore. And I asked him, and I asked him, like, can you please help me find someone that's going to drive me downtown to bring the car back? And to get a hold of Pastor Betty and Pastor Kaz. And I forget what the third thing is. I don't remember. And before I got off the floor, I had asked Rico's mom that she was living with us if she could drive me. And if you know Rico's mom, she does not drive downtown. Right. And I had just asked her, and she said no. And then I was still on the floor, and she came back upstairs, and she says, okay, I'll drive you if you need. Wow. So that was the first thing that God was making happen. And then everything that I had asked that day worked out. I came back here, I met with Pastor Kaz and Betty, and she did the prayer, I accepted Jesus. And then it's funny, because I remember I said, are you sure? There is no chance that God's will is for me to go to London?